it is looking overwhelmingly like the Mavericks are going to lose him for nothing. The Knicks have no need to use the Mavericks on a sign and trade anymore, so I would imagine they would just sign him straight away, whether that's for the 4-110 that we've heard or whatever else the case may be. So it does look like you're going to lose him for nothing. And at the end of the day, I remain frustrated by that. He was your second best player, and I've said many times, I think Jalen Brunson can be a championship 3. Like, I think he can be the third best player on a championship team. I see that other people disagree. I've seen people saying like he's a bench player, which I think is madness. But
he's not that.
Yeah. So what type of player do you think that the Mavericks are losing? Because you brought up an excellent point last night when we were all chatting along with Alec about this, is what type of player he becomes is how much you will or will not regret this, because Chris Haynes said yesterday, I've talked to people in Jalen Brunson's circle who think he has another level to reach that he just couldn't reach with Dallas because he played with the most ball-dominant player in the league. So if he does take another jump up, then I think you will look back at this and regret this. But that's a big if.
And my issue is, I guess, where my question comes into when they talk about he has another level to reach, like where? Like, I think we all saw, like, there were other levels that Jalen Brunson could hit his first couple of years. Like, there was a progression he could make, and he could get better. And so, like, I don't know where there's much more room for him to get better.
Right.
Like, I mean, he could take more threes, I guess. I mean, he takes 2 to 3 threes a game in the modern NBA. That's not really sustainable for you know, a ball dominant player, and somebody taking a lot of shots. Like, he's gonna need, I guess that could be it. He could take some more threes and go to the Dorian Finney-Smith school of three-point shooting, and you know, I mean, not that he's been a bad three-point shooter. What, his last 2 years, he's right around 40%, but it's, you know, he's an efficiency shooter. He takes, you know, he takes a few of them and knocks them down at a decent clip, but there's not a lot of volume there. So to me, when you talk about him getting $27.5 million or maybe more, I don't know, we'll see what the deal is, or when you talk about the Mavericks going a few million over, so like $30 million, will the Mavericks regret not paying $30 million annually to Jalen Brunson? And like we were talking about last night, I think that depends on where he projects out to. So I think there's 3 comps you could look at here as what Jalen Brunson could end up being. And I know everybody, I'm sure there'll be people in the fan text who always love to say things like this. There's no comp. Jalen Brunson is Jalen Brunson. Like, let him be his own man. We're just trying to come up with comparisons.
Sure,
people. Like,
put that aside for this exercise.
So the first, on the lower end, like the lower end comparison, and a guy I think he's already pretty much become, except maybe this guy was a little bit better pass. That's Ty Lawson, who was, you know, a smaller guard, 5'11", 195, and a guy who played really well for Denver early on in his career.
Can I ask you a quick question about that then?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, I get, again, he's not. I'm just curious, your thoughts. If he was 6'4" and put up literally the exact same stats, do you think people would feel any differently? Because I have seen his height come up a lot, and people are like, well, look, outside of Iverson or outside of this person, like how many really short people have you seen kind of take over the NBA? Let's say he did all the same things but was 6'4". Do you think that would change people's perceptions, or the stats would still be the stats? I
think it's pretty impossible for him to be 6'4" and put up the same stats, because I actually do buy into the fact that I think him being 6 feet
is helpful.
Well, I mean, it's helpful in terms of, like, he's able to be slippery. He's able to, like, you know, it helped Barea. The way Barea was able to, you know, get through defenders and his quickness and everything else. But to me, it's like, I think that if he was 6'4", like, there are definitely times where if he's 6'4", he plays better against Phoenix. If he's 6'4", he plays better against Golden State. And so, like, it's hard for me to see the statistics being the same.
Yeah.
And this is not a criticism. Jalen Brunson's a very good player at 6 feet tall. Jalen Brunson's a player I'd want here at $22 million or whatever at 6 feet tall.
Which is supposedly they were going to offer him.
I'm not refusing that. Like he's a good player. But I think on the low end, the low end of the projection would be Ty Lawson.
Okay.
Which is, you know, kind of the player that he is right now. He's a more efficient scorer than Lawson was. He doesn't pass as well, I don't think, as Ty Lawson does, but I mean, you're asked to do different things.
Yeah, I think that's part of the idea is they're like, well, he can pass a lot better.
He just was not asked to because Luka was your point, basically. Yeah.
That part I get more than maybe the scoring aspect is the passing aspect.
Yeah. And so on the mid-tier, and this is the name that I brought up a lot, the mid-level projection, a guy who I think he could still attain to be, and a guy I think is better than him, even though they had, I think his career high scoring average was about what Brunson had this year, and that's Jameer Nelson. Jameer Nelson was a much better three-point shooter to me than Jalen Brunson. He showed that he could run he ran an offense, it was obviously Dwight Howard's team, and Hedo Turkoglu had an insane playoff run that helped them beat the Cavs and get into the finals. But Jameer Nelson was point guard on a team, led a team to the NBA Finals. Like, he was orchestrating the offense for the Magic that year in 08, 09, or whatever that was when they lost to the Lakers. And so Jameer Nelson, I think, is where he could still attain to be. I think he's already kind of Ty Lawson, could go up to Jameer Nelson. The guy that they talk about when they say, man, he could be he's got another level to attain. Yeah. That level to me is Kyle Lowry.
Which is a darn good player.
Which is honestly, 6 feet tall, 196, played at Villanova, came out of Philadelphia. It's the same guy,
right?
Essentially, in terms of the biography. Now, Kyle Lowry he was a good player in Houston, but it obviously took some time before things clicked. He started out in Memphis, went to Houston, didn't really blow up until a couple of years into Toronto. I mean, it was year 7 or 8 for him before he really blew up, but then he did blow up, and he was a 6-time All-Star and was a guy who was averaging 22 points a game and would get you 7 assists and a couple steals. And I think that's the high-end projection that people see when they talk about Jalen Brunson. I think the people who want Jalen Brunson back and think you're going to seriously regret this, or these,
that's what they see.
The articles in the Dallas Morning News that say, oh, they're Steve Nash. This is like letting Steve Nash go.
Which I thought that was a dumb comparison.
Or we had somebody texted G-Bag yesterday and said, with losing Brunson, at what point do you just trade everybody, including Luka, for future assets?
Wow, because we lost Brunson?
So those people right there,
smokes.
I think probably view he's going to be Kyle Lowry, which Kyle Lowry did progressively become a better three-point shooter and went from a guy who was taking 3 or 4 threes a game to a guy who in his prime was taking 7, 8 threes and was shooting 40%.
All right. I hate the idea of tearing it all down, and clearly I do not believe the Mavericks are going to do that. The only reason I would like that is because I've always wanted to run a realistic segment where people submit their proposals about what they would trade for Luka. I'm not saying by any means is that going to happen, but I would just love to hear what people think it would take to make that trade for Luka. Now, I do want to clear this one thing up because I don't think it's only this from the 214. So it's pretty obvious he's just chasing the money, right? I mean, who else do the Knicks have? Okay. There's 2 primary reasons that I disagree with that. Is his former agent is now kind of running the show up there in New York. Yep. And by the way, his new agent is the son of his former agent. And also Jalen Brunson's dad is one of the coaches up there. And he's been with Thibodeau 3 different times. This is the 3rd time. So I'm not saying that's the only reason they made this move by any means, but his former agent is up there running the show. His dad is up there, and it's New York. I know that New York hasn't mattered basketball-wise consistently in a while, but you do still get to play in the biggest market.
He's also a Northeast guy.
Exactly. And yeah, if you're growing up in Philly, you probably with the Big East tournament and everything, it was the dream to play in Madison Square Garden. So I do see the appeal there, but I think his dad and his former agent being part of that is a huge deal.